Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Lowitzo. Welcome to week 4 of ALEC 241. It's Monday morning as I'm recording this. I'm a little pepped up on some green tea and honey as usual, so kind of bear with me. I'm also trying something new with the earbuds and the microphone on my earbuds, so hopefully the sound is less going in and out and less picking up on the loudness of my computer and my heater and things in here. We will see how this one goes. So here's what you need to do for week 4. You should read part 2 and part 3, finish those up out of this book. I believe we left off with what the author had as chapter 13. You know, he only has a couple pages per chapter, so it goes fairly quickly. So I believe we're starting at chapter 13 to the end of part 3. You're watching this lecture video. You're already in great shape on that. So you'll also have 2 assignments due this week. You'll need to submit your interview questions, shot list, production timeline by midnight, Tuesday, February 6th. I'll walk you through that assignment in this video. And then also your online activity number 3 by Tuesday, February 6th. Now that requires you for that online activity to do some more video shooting outside of class to practice shooting your wide, medium, and close-up shots as a sequence to tell a story. It could be something like someone frying an egg and you show, chronologically through a variety of shots how they get the egg out of the refrigerator, how they crack it to fry it in the pan, that sort of thing, and then how they scramble it and put it on a plate to end. But I want some sort of sequence of shots to demonstrate your understanding that concept. You can do it with your phone, or if there are iPads available that aren't checked out, you're welcome to check one out. But don't wait till the last minute to plan that and do that. So just a heads up that it's coming. A big part of what we need to learn about and continue to think about this week is that video production is actually quite the process. We have sort of the discovery phase that we've been talking a lot about, exploring our topics and all of those sorts of things. Now we're sort of moving into talking about the pre-production phase where some of the script writing happens, shot listing, scouting locations. Then you move into production, which is where you're actually in the field shooting, recording, and then post-production, which is all of the editing, and then the distribution is where you put it on the channel where you're actually going to distribute it to your various audiences. So just be aware of that video flow and production process. Part 2 of the book really focuses on scripting and building your shot list. It talks about organize your content before you record it. Don't just wing it, or it's going to not work out very well and be pretty terrible. If you just walk into a lab and think, oh, I'm going to get some shots in here real quick and I'm going to do this interview real quick with this scientist, it's not going to go very well. So you need to plan your interview questions and concepts and topics out ahead of time. And then you need to anticipate the shots that you're going to need to tell this story. If you do that pre-meeting with your scientist in the discovery phase where you try to get to know them and learn a little bit about their research, you can also visit their office and their labs and ask about their labs and their field site to start wrapping your head around what do you need to talk to them about and what are you going to shoot. So after you shoot, you need to organize your sound bites. So some of you might want to transcribe the interviews so that you can get your head around how the interview went and remind yourself what were the important and interesting sound bites that you definitely want to make the cut into your video. What were things that were just not as exciting or too much detail that don't need to go into the video. Or you might want to just start putting that interview on your timeline in Premiere and cutting up the pieces you want to keep and deleting the parts that you don't think need to be in the video. But you need to get your content organized some way, somehow. We call that your A-roll. A-roll is the sound of your story. Typically, you start with putting your story together, your sound bites together first, before you even worry about the B-roll. And the B-roll is all the footage that you shoot that will match what the person is saying. You do that stuff last. Okay, so get your sound bites organized first. They talk about different forms of scripting, and I can show you some of mine here in just a second. You might not need a script at all. You might be the type of person that your creative process is to jump to the timeline and start editing. Some of you might want to transcribe and organize your sound bites in a PowerPoint or a Word document to get your head around it before you move into that editing phase. It also talks about avoiding what the author calls weasel words and repetition in video. So if you have sound bites where your person's kind of weaseling out of the answer and they're not giving a very clear or direct answer, don't use those sound bites. Only use the ones that are pretty direct, pretty easy to understand, and pretty self-explanatory. Also, do not, if we're only producing a 2 to 3 minute video here, you do not want any repetition. If one soundbite says something similar as the other one, pick one and get rid of the other. No repetition. It says video is a rich medium. People can really absorb it pretty quickly, even almost quicker than reading something, because the imagery is so vivid and the sound is so vivid that it sticks with them more than print does. Here I want to show you some quick examples of scripts that I have. A typical script for something that you're planning out ahead of time. So for instance, our electronic field trips, we're planning those ahead of time. We know what we want the scientists to say on camera, sort of like a television show. And so we write those out ahead of time. These are usually multiple column scripts. So in the left column, we have what the show host is going to say. In the middle column, we've sort of mapped out what the scientists are going to say. And then in the right-hand column is the video we know that needs to play there while they're talking, or the photos that need to show while they're talking. So this is a little bit of a live programmed event. Or if someone hires you to produce a movie or a documentary, you're going to want to do your due diligence and script the content out ahead of time to make sure you're going to get some of that stuff. Or at least know, like, in this section is where we're going to have this person's interview go, just to at least have some planning done. And then you see we also have mapped out, like, take iPad 1, take iPad 2, and that's because we know what shots we're wanting to show off of the different iPads we have there. So that's one example of that type of script. Another type of script might be this one, and this is not much of a script so far because it's a project I've still been working on over the last couple of years here about the Salt Creek tiger beetle. So I've interviewed a scientist in 2 locations, I've interviewed 2 zookeepers, I've interviewed someone from Fish and Wildlife, and then Brooke and Michael are working with me to finish this up this semester with a couple more interviews that we need. I'm not much of a person to transcribe verbatim an interview. I really just re-listen to the interview and then I make notes like this of what I think is important from that interview to include in the introduction of the video, the body of the video, and the conclusion of the video. And I try and start to get my head around where do these different things go that he said, like in different facts and points that the people made. And that's how I start to organize my thoughts before I move into cutting up the sound bites. So you can sort of pick and choose the different ways you want to do them. Here's another one that I'm working on. We're going to be recording a video actually today upstairs on the green screen for the second time because we didn't like how it went the first time. But here's, the audio column, what Jamie Morrissey, my graduate student's going to say and what I'm going to say. This will be on a teleprompter. And then on the right-hand side are what images will be shown and what video needs to play. And this is a very short promo video to promote a class that we'll have coming up as part of a research project we're working on. So you'll need to decide how much scripting do you want to do. Now with the type of project you're doing, where I would say you're going to script after the interview. You're going to go do your interview, you're going to have your topics and your interview questions planned out, but then you're going to want to maybe do a little bit more of like what I'm doing with the Salt Creek Tiger Beetle video, where you transcribe the sound bites you like and you start to format them, or you just jump to the timeline and cutting up your interview. So I'm leaving that up to you to work through that process and see which way works for you. You'll hit a point this semester where you're either going to want to show me your script to make sure the information flows and makes sense, or you're going to want me to sit down and watch how you've started to cut up your sound bites and listen to those with you to make sure they're organized and make sense. I leave it up to you to choose whichever way works best for your own creative process when it comes to scripting. There's no real wrong or right way to do it. Okay, so part 3 also talks about storyboarding. If you're hired to produce a movie or a documentary or something like that, people will literally sit down and draw out what they think needs to be in every shot and every scene to match what needs to be the content in that scene. You won't do that for your scientist interviews, but it's just important to be aware of that. It also talks about following stories that matter to you. So when you meet with your scientist ahead of time, you kind of prep your character for your video. Make sure you're following the pieces of their research and their story that you think are the cool parts of what they're doing, because most likely the viewer is going to have the same sort of intuition and gut feeling as you as to what is the interesting piece of what they're doing. Scout your location ahead of time. When you meet with your scientists, don't just sit in their office. Ask to also see the lab where they might be working or the field site. Ask to see some photos on their computer of the different things and sites they've been working at and what they've been doing. And then you can start to get an idea of what you're actually going to shoot and show for this video and start making your shot list. Practice with your equipment ahead of time. Don't just all of a sudden get in the field and not know why the iPad isn't doing something you're wanting it to do, or why the memory is full and you don't have enough space to record things. Know how to work the apps ahead of time. Know how to use the microphones ahead of time. We do a lot of this practice in class and things like that before you actually go to your video shoots with your scientists, but keep practicing. Commit to your own standard of excellence. And I think this is an important point the author tries to make. Tell yourself what your standard of excellence is going to be. Oh, that shot is not going to be good enough to meet the quality of the type of video I'm trying to produce. I better shoot it again. Or it was not the best lighting that day. I want to go back out a second time because it doesn't look as good as I wanted it to look. Always apply the you test frequently, it says. In your mind as a video producer, you should always be asking, why would I want to watch this? What do I think is the most important, impactful thing to be showing? Would I think this is interesting to see? Always apply that test to what you're shooting and doing. Now, we haven't spent a lot of time, I realize, talking about why mobile in this class. Why am I sort of having us use phones and iPads, and why don't we have better, fancier cameras, or why aren't we allowed to use the fancier cameras maybe? I just want you to know that this is a little bit of a ongoing research project for me as well, and just a new way of looking at how to teach these sorts of things. I've had the University of Arizona call me, I've had hospitals call me, I've had other similar AgCom programs start to buy these iPad kits because they see what we are doing. We are the early adopters with streaming science of doing some mobile communication type work, and I'm very excited about that. So just be aware of this a little bit, this technology adoption curve, this diffusion of innovation curve. And this is what we're doing with our mobile video production skills here. We're sort of at the early adopters piece, where people are really starting to dig into using mobile for journalism and science communication, and not just, sharing with your friends on social media like we all know how to do. So we're pretty cool in what we're doing, just to let you know. So some more tips I'd like you to learn for learning a new technology. You might think this is dumb, I don't want to do it, I don't like the tools we're using, and that's fine. Maybe you do feel that way, but I do hope that you will be open-minded in what we're doing with these different devices and trying out these different topics with these different scientists, that this is a really pretty cool model and project. Just absorb everything you can this semester. Read stuff that I'm putting in Canvas. Listen, watch, discuss. Go to Google. Google all of those things about the state-of-the-art multimedia mobile stuff that I posted back in week 1. Practice, get your hands on the technology. Always ask for help in this class. You have Michael with office hours now. You have myself. You have class time. We have Brooke, who has a lot of experience, and Shelby. Ask your classmates how to do things. Ask me. Don't be embarrassed. Always ask for help. Have fun this semester in what we're doing, and always try again and again. You might make this one video for class. Do it again in your internship. Do it again on your own for fun with a different topic. But don't give up and keep trying to work on your skills. So just a little bit about the Filmic Pro app on our iPads that you kind of got a little bit of a look at last week that we'll dig into more. Filmic Pro is actually pretty cool. It's different than the camera app on our iPads and phones. Camera app is still fine. You can switch it to video, you can switch it to time lapse, you can do cool stuff with it. But Filmic Pro, if you see this red circle you can drag around the screen, that acts like your camera aperture. So it gives you a little bit more function and flexibility to set the lighting of the iPad, and the box acts as the focus. You tell it where you want it to focus. And then it has the audio meter to just make sure your audio is recording at a good sound level. Has all of these other, you can put the rule of thirds overlay on there to check on your horizon. So it's just a little bit more professional than the camera app. If somehow you get a phone or an iPad that doesn't have Filmic Pro, go with the camera app, no worries. But just know Filmic Pro is there. It's pretty cool to have a little bit more functionality. And then we're going to use Adobe Premiere. Please, still, if you don't have this on your computers, Adobe Creative Cloud, get with someone in class that can help you. Google UNL procurement services, read what it says to do for students to get Adobe. I don't really know on your end how it all works because I had computer support set me up when I started here on mine, but I know you have to have your Huskers account, email account to be able to get it, that sort of thing. Michael's recording some new tutorial videos for us this semester about how to use Premiere. There's also tons of Premiere tutorials out there. We're going to get to a point in the semester where we're just doing that sort of thing in class, and we'll be helping you out. Other concepts to keep in mind from the readings and from things we're talking about in class, to reiterate these, every story has a beginning, middle, and end. So think about that as you organize the content for your video. Think in shots, shoot wide, medium, and tight shots. Always use that rule of thirds for framing and putting something interesting in each quadrant intersection of your frame. For every action, there's a reaction. So if you're shooting a two-shot of two people talking, a scientist and a student, then move in for a medium shot of the scientist and then a medium shot of the student talking. Every action has a reaction. You could say the same thing for a tractor, a combine. What is it doing? You can have a wide shot of it in the field and then a close-up of the driver and what is his face looking at, his hands on the steering wheel, break that up into shots, and then a shot of the crops going through the combine and that sort of thing. So think in shots, action, reaction. Capture 2 interviews with your scientist. One where it's sort of head and shoulders, they're standing or sitting and talking to you directly. And then a second one where you leave the microphone on them and maybe have them show you around their lab or their research plot or something like that. So sort of 2 interviews with one person that you can then weave together in the 2 locations. Remember, always have the tripod at eye level due to that powership and authority balance we talk about in class. Use a tripod as much as possible for your wide shots and your medium shots because it needs stability. You'll feel like you're moving and getting seasick and all of that. And then sometimes you'll want to be off the tripod to follow motion of their hands or to get closer to certain things. But try to use a tripod for those big wide shots. I'm also doing this. I know a lot of us are shooting vertical on our mobile devices, but start flipping things and shooting horizontal. Use all of the pixels that are available from the camera and on your screen. Do not shoot vertical in this class where you have those 2 black bars on the side. Such a waste of beautiful scenery, pixels, and screen. I just shoot vertical, please. Also, no zooming and panning. You're going to move with your feet to move in and out and get closer to things with the iPad. Okay, so this is the assignment for the week. One of the big ones, your final project pre-production sort of packet you're going to turn in here. It should have your interview questions for your scientist that you believe you'll want to ask, the shot list, the estimated timeline for completion. This will be due Tuesday the 6th. I will look at it with you here if I can pull it up. Okay, so here's what it looks like, the template. Put your name on this thing so I know whose it is, please, and I don't have to kind of go back and forth to Canvas and guess. But I want to see 12, 15 interview questions. You might rule some of them out in class, that sort of thing, that you will ask your scientists. Some of them need to be factual about their research. about what they're trying to find out. What is their hypothesis? What is their research question? What methods are they using? What results are they seeing? Who do they hope to impact? Would be one of the emotional questions. You also need to ask them things about themselves. What were they like as a kid? Why do they love the work that they do? All of those sorts of things that make us interested in and care about the scientist. So I want to see some objective and subjective questions woven together here as to what you might ask your scientist. I want to see a shot list, ideas you're starting to have of what you're going to shoot in location 1 and location 2. And I have some description there for how you could do that. And I want to see in parentheses, is it a medium wide or close-up shot? And then for your timeline, a lot of people kind of mess up the timeline part of this assignment every year. I don't know why, but put a final due date here. Look at the syllabus. If you look at the syllabus, the final project is due week 16. So that'll be April 23rd to 27th. So you'll put that's when it's due here, and then you're going to backtrack. You're going to say, okay, if it's due in April, I need to be shooting, the first and second week and third week of February. I need to be editing these certain weeks in March, and then I need to be having it ready for April. But I want that broken down more specifically, like when you're going to be shooting at location 1, location 2, when you're going to be editing the A roll and scripting it, when you're going to be editing the B roll, when you're going to be adding the music and sound. So this is the type of timeline you would give a client who comes to you and asks you to create a video for them, and they're paying you to have it done by a certain date. You would say, here you go, here's how I'm going to meet this for you and have this work done on time for you. So I want you to get some practice doing that. All right, any questions about the assignment, please let me know. Again, you need to do that assignment plus your online activity 3 by Tuesday, February 6th at midnight. And I hope everybody has a great week 4.